Hola, mi college football amigos, and welcome to another episode of Walk It Off, where today we're going to take a look at the current top 10, the AP top 10. Now, the top four, I feel real comfortable, real good about them making it to the CFP Final Four in December and January. So you've got Georgia at 1, Bama at 2, Ohio State at 3, Michigan at 4. And I could entertain the argument of interchanging any of those teams in any one of those four spots. Right now, I think that they're all playing really well. But outside of that, I have a little bit of concern for the remaining 6 teams in the AP Top 10. So we'll go through each one and I'll tell you my concerns. So let's start with Clemson at number 5. Now, I don't think that they should have been run over and beat up on defense the way that they were by Wake Forest. And that's not to take anything away from my guy Sam Hartman and Coach Dave Clawson and offensive coordinator Warren Ruggiero. They did a great job, schemed a great game plan, but I was really taken back at how ineffective that Clemson defense was, primarily their pass rush and their secondary. They got exposed, and that's a big glaring weakness for the Tigers moving forward. USC at number 6. I feel pretty good about them, but I didn't expect them to be taken to the wire by Oregon State, even on the road. I mean, Oregon State was playing with about 25% capacity, and it got loud there, and Oregon State is a good team. They put up a great fight. I love what Jonathan Smith is doing as head coach for the Beavs, but that USC offense, which was melting opposing defenses, really did not seem to be in any kind of gear. I think that Oregon State, a couple inches away from knocking down that touchdown pass to Jordan Addison at the end. Credit Caleb Williams for making a great throw. Credit the defense for coming up with 2 very well-timed turnovers. Eric Gentry tipping the ball to Max Williams, who's playing great at safety right there for USC number 4. So I like what the Trojans have. But again, since their offense was held in check by Oregon State, a little bit of concern moving forward, especially as they have to play Utah and they have to play UCLA, which is not going to be a rollover. But I think of all the Pac-12 teams, they've got the easiest schedule from here on out. Utah, Oregon certainly have a little bit tougher than that. Kentucky at number 7. Their offense has not been as impressive as it needs to be. Their defense is playing great, aside from the fact that they're not getting pressure in opposing backfields. They are near the bottom in terms of sacks created and tackles for loss. So if they're going to legitimately contend for first or second place even in the East, with Georgia at the top and Tennessee right now also in the mix, Kentucky's going to have to get a little bit better play from their run game. And I know Chris Rodriguez has been out, but with guys like Cavassier Smoke and others in that backfield, for them to be, mid to near the bottom in the NCAA in rushing, especially given the offensive line skills and coaching talent that we know they've got there, and that's something, the trenches, the line of scrimmage, is what Mark Stoops prides that program in being good at. They need to run the ball better, because Will Levis is not going to win all of these games, these double-digit games. Tavion Robinson doing an outstanding job, transfer from Virginia Tech. They're getting some big plays from freshman Dane Key, and they've got the explosion there. But when push comes to shove and they need to win the line of scrimmage, they need to start doing that a little bit better for me to have more faith in them. Moving on to Tennessee at number 8. I honestly think that Tennessee is also a little bit inflated. Offensively, they're doing great, and I know coaching matters. Josh Heupel is a great offensive mind. Alex Golesh, the offensive coordinator, is proving to be one as well. Hendon Hooker is playing near flawless football. He has not thrown an interception yet. He's doing it with his legs, but he's also reading defenses really well. Talked about it coming into the season. He was one of the most efficient quarterbacks, and he's still proving to be that. He certainly is in the Heisman race. But on the other side of the ball, Tim Banks, the D coordinator, they're going to have to clean some things up, because Tennessee right now is 96th in total defense. They've played a soft non-conference schedule, aside from Pitt and aside from Florida, who I know is in conference. Those are 2 key wins, and kudos to that. But you look at Pitt, they were playing with 1, 2 banged up quarterbacks, and Tennessee had to win in overtime, only a 7-point victory there. So that win over Pitt is not as great as people might make it out to be, because Pitt, I know they're 3-1 right now, but you know, they squeaked by against West Virginia, and you know, they beat Rhode Island this last weekend. They beat Western Michigan, who is, you know, a decent MAC team, but certainly not to the caliber of what they're going to face even in the bottom of the SEC. So defense has got to get cleaned up for Tennessee. Oklahoma State, they're another team that's very suspect. Spencer Sanders is doing a great job throwing the ball. They're scoring a lot of points. They're the second highest scoring offense in college football right now. But defensively, they're getting after the quarterback, but their pass defense is no bueno. They're giving up chunks of yards. They gave up 44 points to Central Michigan. They beat Arkansas Pine Bluff, and they, I believe, allowed 17 points to an Arizona State team that is just lost right now. And, you know, really, that should have been a more convincing victory for the Pokes. They're 57th in defensive efficiency, and I know they're still kind of putting pieces back together from the losses in personnel, especially in that secondary, and the loss of Jim Knowles. But Derek Mason is a pretty good defensive coordinator. They've got to shore things up, and also they're not running the ball that well. So if Spencer Sanders has to do it all on his own, can he? And if he can, and if Oklahoma State wins 10 or 11 games just on Spencer Sanders, then he certainly needs to be in the consideration for the Heisman Trophy, because right now they're not running the ball on offense. And then NC State at 10, you know, they've got an impressive win, and I'll put that in air quotes, over Texas Tech. They kind of pulled away in the second half there. They narrowly escaped against East Carolina, which I think that's a competitive East Carolina game. I don't want to take anything away from the Pirates, but, you know, then they also played UConn, so we're going to see just exactly which of those two ACC Atlantic teams, Clemson at 5 or NC State at 10, which one is really going to prove themselves to possibly be a college football playoff contender. And by that I mean one of those teams is going to have to dominate and take over the other one. So no overtime victory, no 1-point victory. I think if either one of those teams is going to make a statement that they will contend for the college football playoff, it's got to be a 10, 17-point victory for either Clemson, the home team, or NC State, the visitors, because it's almost smooth sailing from there on out, especially for Clemson, because they've already beaten Wake Forest. If they beat NC State, they can almost cruise control their way to the ACC championship game. I don't see much other threats from the Atlantic side. And, you know, same with NC State. Now, they still have to play Wake Forest, but beating Clemson will give them essentially a 2-game lead, because if the Wolfpack and the Tigers are tied at the end of the year, if, let's say, Wake beats NC State and Clemson already beat Wake, NC State obviously will hold that tiebreaker. So this is going to be, goes without saying, a pivotal game for the Wolfpack and for the Tigers. But that's my thoughts on the AP Top 10. Hit me back. Let me know what you think. Where was I correct? Where was I maybe off base? Show your fandom, but all I ask is a little bit of background and a little bit of justification for any argument that you make, because I love it. I love the banter, love college football. I'm Chappy. This is what I know. Buenos dias, everybody.